Welcome back, guys. Uncharted Reacts here with another podcast episode with your favorite fan guest favorite star.
Trying to remember your last name.
Technically, if you want to work to get yourself out of that situation, then
Welcome back to the Uncharted podcast. Today I have my friend, Abi Alvarado, and she's going to be going through dog training, nutritional value, and we're going to have some fun. And let's go.
okay.
We start out with what motivated you to pursue a career in nutrition?
So I don't have a career in nutrition. I yeah, so he sent me a list of these questions. I said, first of all, I don't. I have my bachelor's degree in human nutrition and dietetics, and I pursued this degree in college originally before COVID hit because I was interested in human health and exercise science and all these different kind of things of how to live a healthier lifestyle. And I originally was going for the career of a registered dietitian and different things like that. But in the middle of my degree, COVID hit in 2020, and lots of things were shutting down. Like I was just getting into job shadowing at an actual clinic, and in the middle of COVID shutting everything down, I kind of went into a straightforward get my degree done and just get it done as fast as I could. So I graduated in December of 21 with my degree in nutrition and had pretty much nowhere to go with it. I was like, well, what do I do now? I could go back to school for 2 years. I just kind of lost my passion for it amongst all of that, trying to get it done. But I don't regret, trucking through it and getting it done. And now I have the knowledge to be able to share with friends, family, or whatever. And like eventually for my future family, being able to teach my kids about nutrition or why this is healthier or why this might be a better food choice or like what's the ingredients in this or what's the, what kind of nutrients are in this kind of thing. So I don't regret it. I am grateful for the knowledge for it, but I did not end up actually pursuing a career in human nutrition.
So, oh man.
You still laughing because you don't even know my name.
Oh, oh man. How would you talk to somebody and explain to them the importance of nutrition and having like a plan for nutrition?
Well, nutrition overall is a big subject to kind of dive into and talk about. And lots of people sort of have their own definition of what healthy is or what nutrition is. Modern day dietitians will talk about different aspects to whole body health. Like there's mental, physical, and emotional health, all of your well being all wrapped into one. And nutrition is a part of that, just one piece of the pie to it. Basically, what you eat, how it makes you feel, how your body reacts to it, and different things like that. If someone is wanting to like eat more nutritiously, like how do you break that down? How do you make that an actual feasible goal? That is where a dietitian will step in and be like, okay, well, let me analyze what you've been eating and let me say, well, we could probably cut this out, change this, reduce this, and then get you an actual feasible goal instead of, I just want to eat healthier. That phrase is like the biggest stumbling block for lots of people who want to actually make a change. They don't know where to start. And that's where I think dietitians have the noble cause of showing people how to get that started and keeping them motivated.
So, in your opinion, do you think that buying organic food is worth it?
So technically, unless like approved by the FDA, unless a food has a USDA little circle, USDA organic approved like stamp or little seal symbol on there, then that ensures that the product is 95% organic. Only if it has that USDA seal on there can you actually like it's actually been regulated to be an organic food product. If it doesn't have that on there and it just says organic, then it's pretty much a waste of money. It's not an actual organic product because there are no regulations to prove that it was grown or sourced organically. So it's not a waste of money, but you definitely want to be putting better quality foods into your meal plans, your table, your diet, your lunch, whatever you're going to eat. But that can look different to a lot of different people. A lot of different factors to that are time, how much time you have, how much money you have to be able to put towards fresh ingredients or things like that. How much time do you have to prep it? How much time do you have to cook it? How much time do you have to eat it? Time is like another one of the biggest stumbling blocks to people being able to make healthier choices and things like that.
Is it true that however important it is to you, you'll make a way to do it?
I'd say yes and no. Some people really have extenuating circumstances that prevent them from reaching certain goals. For example, near us, probably like an hour south, is a city called Cairo. It is what is considered a food desert. There is not a fresh market food place. There's not a Walmart. There's not anything for like 30 or 45 miles because it's a very, very poor area. The best place people can get groceries from is like a Dollar General. So there's no
Wow.
way for them to get actual fresh food unless they have the time or resources to drive 45 minutes to go and get fresh food and then come back with it. And since it's already a geographically poor area to begin with, it's not like they have a whole lot of options. So technically, if you want to work to get yourself out of that situation, then everybody just saw you in that. Yeah, I did. You can just walk past. Stop scooting on. You can make a meme out of that. Like me
Oh,
saying,
probably
"New
will.
year, new me, my bad habits creeping in behind me." Or something like that. Twinkies.
Right?
Back to what I was saying. I think with enough if you have enough motivation and time to actually put in the work to achieve those goals, if you can keep your motivation, I think you can eventually achieve them. Uh, but you have to, again, make those feasible goals. So, say you're in that situation where you're in a food desert or you're not financially able to uh, be able to make healthier food or things like that, then what do you need to start changing or what do you need to start sacrificing to achieve that goal? Take it small steps at a time so you're not like overwhelmed by, I just need to be better. In school, we learn how to make what we call like SMART goals for people, break down goals to make them feasible into smaller steps. And you can do the same thing with exercise too. Like if you want to say like, "Oh, I want to start exercising," or "I want to be better," or "I want to lose weight," or whatever like that. Start yourself on a goal that is so small that if you do not achieve it, you're like, "Okay, wow, I'm like really a loser." Like if you want to
Yeah.
start exercising, okay, what exercise? Pick one. Push-ups. I want to be able to do 10
Hmm.
push-ups. Okay, set yourself a goal of one push-up a night. If you can't do that, then you will be able to do it. Set something so small that you will be able to do at least one. And then when you've done one, you're like, okay, I could do two, I could do three, I can do four. Once you push yourself
Yeah.
to make the motivation to do just the one, you'll be able to do more. And then you'll feel good
Agreed.
about accomplishing a goal. And then it just leads you steps into being able to accomplish bigger goals and things like that.
Definitely.
So it's you just got to figure out where to start. And that's the hardest part for people with health, fitness, anything like any kind of change, really.
Yeah. And like figuring out where to start and then starting. Because like
Right.
you're not gonna be somebody else. You can't compare yourself to somebody else. You said you just have to get started. Like you said, with the one. A lot of people won't even do the one. And it's like, just get started. Start bad.
Hmm.
That's how good people get good. They start bad.
Everybody
Uh,
had to start somewhere.
exactly. But with that, a question. So if you went to college and got your degree, how did you start dog training?
So in college, I actually joined a program called Sit Service Dogs. And it was where they would teach you how to train service dogs. And then you would then train service dogs for them. It was a big RSO on campus. Um, it's a something registered student organization on campus, and it's the only one like it in the United States. It's where this actual service dog company that has been working in this field for like 15 years not hire students, but train students and gets them involved with service dogs and service dogs training. It was like my eyes were opened up to a whole new world. We were learning how to work with kids on the autism spectrum. We did seizure alert dogs. We did diabetic alert. We did physical mobility dogs, those kind of things. And in working with these animals and learning how they needed to work with their people, it like it changed me a lot in a good way to have my eyes open to people who had these kind of needs and to be able to work with the dogs. So basically we would start with learning basic dog behavior and how they think so that we can learn how to work with them. They're not just robots. They're not going to just be able to sit,
Yes.
stay down, and that's it. These dogs have to learn um, what do they call it? Cognitive disobedience when, like, say a person is having a seizure, they're telling their dog to go away and go away, and the dog has to learn to stay. They have to learn when to disobey their owner's command so that they can best help them. And so to learn how to teach that concept in a dog, it was crazy. It was really, really cool though. We learn dog behavior, how they think, then basic obedience. Basic obedience was my favorite just because I took to it really easy. And you figured out different things with the dogs, and then you would specialize them based on their client. We would take the pups and match them based on personality with their clients. So, say we had a kid who was like really shy on the autism spectrum and didn't have a whole lot of confidence, didn't have a whole lot of had some other issues. We would pair them up with like a dog who knew how to be quiet but outgoing enough to get them out of their shell kind of thing. It was really cool how we would match personality to personality and then specialize the dog to fit the kid's actual needs. That was my probably my favorite part.
That's it. So, how do you handle a situation where a dog is responding positively to isn't responding to training? What does that look like?
So sounds like an adolescent pup that you're dealing with. They Dogs are almost like kids in the way that they think and react to external stimuli and different things going on. They don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to cooperate when they're pups or adolescents growing up. And so you have to learn how to manage their frustration and to really figure out how to positively correct them when they do something well. Because dogs in themselves are good workers. They want to please humans because we bred them to be that way. Since the descendant of wolves, dogs have literally been bred to be man's best friend. And now they work to please us. Whether it's like working in a farm or working Labrador retrievers, working for service dogs or anything like that, uh, Malinois and Shepherds for police work. Whatever it is, dogs want to have a job to do and they want to be good at it. So you really have to learn what is the dog really good at, encourage them at that when they're getting frustrated with something they're not good at. You reset the situation, whether that be taking the dog just for a walk or doing some other light commands or something like that, and then you come back to the hard situation. So, an example of this would be a dog I worked with one time named Oscar. We were learning mobility commands, and he had to learn how to click a button on like a handicap door. It was like
Hmm.
this little round button, and he had to figure out how to hit it with his paw so that the door would open for us. And he was really getting frustrated with having to jump up and hit it exactly. And when the dog would get frustrated, they'll just kind of like blow you off, not really pay attention to you. They don't want to do eye contact because they know they're not doing what you want, but they like you can't communicate. We can't communicate with words. So it's a game
Yeah.
of trying to get them to understand you and you understand what they're trying to say. So the way you would build that up is so he knows sit by now, and we're learning touch. Touch is like where
Hmm.
you say like touch, you start with your hand and you get them to touch your hand with their paw or their nose or something like that, and you reward the behavior. Be like, okay, touch here. You touched my hand. Good job. Good touch. Something like that. And then you move to finger pointing on something else. Maybe your hand is here. and then on the wall, you click here, and you're saying, "Okay, touch here." And they miss your hand, they hit the wall. Okay, good job. So now they're learning what you need to follow is this finger direction, not just your hand or anything like that. And you just kind of advance that until you eventually learn, oh, this thing on the wall, touch here, they'll figure it out. So he eventually got to the point where we would come to these specific buttons and things like that, and I wouldn't even need to say it to him. He would just do it so that we could just smoothly walk through doors and stuff like that. It was pretty cool, but
Yeah.
you just kind of have to build up their behavior. I don't
How
know if that
old
was
do
a good
they?
explanation or not.
It was. How old do they? How old are they when they can become training dogs?
So we first put them on campus when and like start taking them out and stuff for actual like we say they'll hit the ground at a certain age. Uh Pretty much after they've turned a year old, then we kind of start with or like I think it was like 9 months to a year. It just depends on how the litter is coming along. But we start taking the pups out for like puppy exposure whenever they're like 8 weeks, 9 weeks old, something like that, so that they can get used to being desensitized to everything in the big world, like sounds, new smells, new sights. They've been born and raised at the kennels.
Yeah.
So we would take them out, and I've taken pups with me to the office, taken them to class, different things like that. You just keep them in a little sling, and they're just seeing and taking everything in.
Uh,
And that's just part of like the beginning process of desensitizing them to all these different stimuli and things like that. So that when they're ready to get on campus, they're like, okay, I've been here before, I've seen this before. I can work with my handler a little bit better and be a little bit calmer.
is there an average age across all dogs that they train where they can't train past that? Say like if
You
a
mean,
dog gets to
can
like
old
10 years
dogs learn new
old.
tricks? um, I'd say with the proper motivation, you can probably teach a dog of almost any age unless they are physically unable, like if they're in pain or anything like that. It depends on the breed too. If you get a really stubborn breed, like like an Akita or a Husky or something like that, that they're very independent and self-willed and things like that. If you add that to old age, you're probably working against the tide a lot. But depending on the dog, like a lab can probably learn something new. Border collies, of course, they can learn something new and things like that. So I think you can teach an old
Stuff
dog
like
new tricks.
no, like starting from when they start as when you start training them, you said from 9 months to a year, to when do they stop? For is it a certain age of
Oh, I
time for
see
their
what you're
body?
saying. Basically, they graduate as soon as they're ready. So, graduation is when we officially turn them over from our trainers to their person that we're placing them with. Um, it really just depends on how far along the litter is. There's not really a cap on the age limit, but they all do typically graduate by 2 years old, at least. If they haven't, which is rare, it's because they failed the program. Either they were just really not cut out for service work, which we do breed, or they do breed their own service dogs, but we also do pull dogs from shelters and things like that. But typically, I've only seen one or two that have failed the program that were born service dogs, born and bred service dogs.
Okay.
And we do not graduate a dog just because it might be a little bit older. Like if the rest of its litter graduated, but this one didn't because it's not finished yet, we're not going to just send it out the door because it's like it's getting older and oh, the rest of its siblings went. And sometimes they need extra work depending on how specialized their training needs to be. Like based on if their new handler will need like extra mobility on their right side or something, maybe they need a couple more months of training to specifically be able to handle that. So just kind of depends on how fast they're learning and how far they've come.
Are they breeding aggressive bred dogs, or like are they trying for the calmer type?
What we really look for in the dogs is like from a young age, they are being happy lab puppies. We want lab pups that are uh, not aggressive to other dogs, like non reactive. We want ones that are And you can kind of tell when they're puppies, kind of what they would be great for, whether they'd be great for mobility or retrievals or different things like that. Seizure response, you just kind of can tell how the pups look. One litter that we had was the Mario pups, is what we had named them all after. And like you could tell which ones were really good at retrieving things. You could tell which ones were very attentive and would be great for like autism spectrum or something like that. So it was pretty cool. You can kind
Gotcha.
of tell when they're little.
So, is this something that you plan to do for a long time, or just?
I actually haven't worked with service dogs in a while. I'm still in contact with them. They're still great people. And I mean, it'd be something to get back into, maybe, potentially. I just don't really have the time for it anymore. Um, but I did do training with them since I was in college, since 2018 until even last year when I was working 3 jobs. That was one of them, still working with them at the kennels, taking out a dog when I could to just do extra training and things like that. So it's a lot of fun, but just a lot of time that sometimes I just don't have.
How do you address safety concerns related to aggressive dogs?
So I typically do my best to avoid aggressive dogs when I can. I've been bit before and it hurt so bad that I cried. All I could do is stand there and cry and try not to yell at the dog. It was a lab. It was a younger juvenile lab that was being a brat, and they'll do that when they're in that stage of life and being brats. Um, and it was just like in the heat of the moment, it was in a frenzy, and I opened its kennel and it jumped out and grabbed me on the leg, and it hurt so bad. I just
Ooh.
started crying, and I was so mad. And I was so mad, and I was glad he was out of reach because I was like, "Hey, you little dog!" Like I was just mad. And eventually I got over it. I'm like, okay, something we got to work on. But like that's why I like to evaluate dogs if somebody's wanting me to train them, train it for them, because I really don't want to get into aggressive reactive dogs. I was not trained for those kind of dogs to handle that kind of situation, and I don't want to mislead anybody and let them think I know how to handle their either dog aggressive or human reactive pet. And so I just
Yeah.
try to stay away from that the best I can. But there was one that I wanted to work with. Eventually, I didn't because he was just too much of a bite risk for me, and the owners didn't want me to get into that because they were just worried how he would. They didn't want him to bite me or anything like that. I'm like, well, if I take it on, it's kind of my fault. But he
Yeah.
was a Great Pyrenees mix, and he was just like an anxiety-driven dog. And the thing about him, I work with him just a little bit because I had been around him a little bit, and what the biggest thing I noticed in him was that when he had established boundaries, that is when he felt the safest, and that's when he was not reactive. Like when I very first met him as a younger pup, like he growled at me, barked at me, was immediately like, "Ah," in my face, just trying to like to show me that he was scary, aggressive, and kind of things like that. And I ignored him. And like, because that's kind of what you need to do, depending on what the issue is with the dog. If there's a dog attacking you, don't just like turn your back or whatever. But for this guy, I could tell like he was just trying to get a reaction out of me because he wanted to be the scary one. So if you just ignore that behavior and just let them sniff you and slowly approach you, then they're like, oh, okay, that didn't work. So I guess I'll just be nice or whatever. And I asked the owners to let me put him on a leash and walk him around, put him through a couple paces, and kind of see how he'd react. And at first, when I got close to him, he like was snarling at me, didn't want me to touch him, nothing like that. And I said, okay, we'll see. I put a leash on him and I started not yanking him around, but making him feel like I was the boss. You don't need to try
Yeah.
to make any decisions. You don't need to be the one in control because dogs are terrible leaders. They are not. They were bred to be our sidekicks. So when they feel like they don't have a handler or a human to put their trust in or their safety, security, or whatever, that's when they'll get the aggressive. That's when they'll get the like the reactiveness. Then when they're scared of things because they don't have a human that they feel like they can trust or anything like that. And that's not always the case. That's just with some of them. But this particular one, he just had low confidence, like self-confidence in dogs can cause that reactivity. And so when I got him on the leash and like I Basically showed him, "I've got this. You're under control. You're fine." Walking him around. Within just a couple paces, he was letting me pet him. He was letting me touch him. All this kind of stuff. Wasn't barking at me. Wasn't reactive. Nothing like that. And so just that
Wow.
change in his aggressiveness, I was like, okay, I like to work with him. Like we can make this happen. It was obviously just he's scared. He has low self confidence, and it's that kind of reactivity. They eventually just took him to another trainer who was specialized for reactive dogs, and I don't blame him. I would have looked for the best trainer for my reactive dog as well too. But that's probably the only one I've ever worked with that was truly an aggressive case.
How many times have you been bit when you were training dogs?
Like intentionally hard bit on purpose,
Yeah.
like they were trying to get me. Probably only 2 or 3 times. That was one of the big ones, and I've gotten a lot my reaction time and ability to read body language of dogs has gotten a whole lot better since then. The other time
Yeah.
was a dog that we had pulled from a shelter, and we're trying to place her for service work. And she was some kind of lab mix with really lanky legs, and that's relevant to the story. And I was handling her for a meet and greet we were doing with different people around the campus, and just again training the dogs how to interact with the general public, how to ignore people they need to ignore, and how to pay attention when they need to. And I was just watching her walk around a little bit, and I thought her gait fell off when she was walking with me, and then when I was watching her walk with other people, and I was like, that looks kind of weird. And with our dogs, we have to make sure they are physically fit. A big issue you can see with dogs is their hips. We need to make sure that their hips are good. So with her, I kind of noticed she was looking a little bit off. So I was keeping an eye on her, keeping her close, thinking she might have had something in her paw. And I'm feeling around, just feeling for anything abnormal or anything. And she's real tight on her back end. And I'm like, okay, this is something to look at later once we can get the dogs back home, back to the kennel, and kind of get a closer look. And so somebody else comes up and starts to pet on her and stuff. And they start going towards her back end. And I didn't think anything of it because she didn't really snap at me yet, and
Mm-hmm.
they started going like that, and I saw her bristle, and I immediately grabbed her head because she was snapping at the person. She went to go snap at the person, so I scruffed her. I was like, "Oh, okay. Sorry, looks like Fluffy is having a little bit of issues." And so I have the head coordinator come over, look at her, and watch her walk. And I said, "You notice that weird gait thing she's got going on?" We took her in for radiographs, and she had twisted hips, and that's just either a genetic thing or something that
Oh
happened when
wow.
before she got to us or something like that. But it was enough pain that she would snap at people from it, and that's just something we can't have. Plus, we didn't want to put her through pain through making her a working dog, so we just adopted
Yeah.
her out to some loving family. But so that was a pain response. I guess the dog wasn't really coming for me, and the other one was probably just a puppy being a brat, biting at me when we're working on training. But
So is that something that can be fixed by like surgical?
so there are orthopedic vets around us. There's literally one within like a 2-hour radius. And it's expensive. It's very, very expensive. Sometimes with that stuff, it's almost just pain management if you're not going to do corrective surgery on their spine or hip alignment. And sometimes it can't be corrected with surgery. But we definitely
Wow.
don't want to put that kind of strain on a working animal who will have to be walking and doing tasks daily with their person.
Yeah. Mhm. So the transition, you said you wanted to go back to school. Is that still a possibility?
Uh, yes, yes, I'm really looking into it. Oh, so where I currently work now is in a vet clinic, and I just happened to the job kind of fell into my lap. So I work as like the front receptionist slash vet tech thing. Like I do some stuff in the back and help, but mostly I just kind of manage office flow. I'm like the front line for people calling about things wrong with their pets. So I have to evaluate the situation and get them the best solution that I can based on staff we have, based on doc's time and different stuff like that. But it's not like a career that I can build on. And I've never been one to want a career, but I definitely want something that I can continue to improve on, whether with my experience, with my pay that I'll get, or different things like that. And this is I've kind of hit the top of like where I'll be in this position. So I'd like to work towards something that I can just continue to build and grow and experience and learn in. And in the veterinary field, you learn and see something new every day. Like 2 days ago, I had to wrestle a dog away from eating another dog in the lobby. And like it's just something you never expect to do. I had to, he was like this big old Roddy pit mix or something like that. He jumps out of his halter, grabs his teeth for this little beagle sitting there that's just sitting there like this, waiting to get eaten. And so I grab the dog and scruff him and drag him back behind my desk, grab a leash and have to open it and loop it around his neck and be like, all right, you're done. That's enough. And the owner was like, Fluffy, why'd you do that? I'm like, girl, why do you have
What you
this
mean?
dog? You can't even keep him
Fluffy.
on a leash. I tell you, people got some names about. We
Fluffy.
could spend a whole nother
That's
hour talking about
crazy.
my vet stories. There's a dog at our clinic named Coco Butt Crackle. Don't even know where they got that name. He's a scruffy old chihuahua, and people come up with all kind of names. Just this week, Doc had to run out in the parking lot and pull 3 baby goats out of a goat that was trying to give birth right in the parking lot. So there's blood everywhere, guts everywhere. Goats are yelling. Doc has to run back inside
Man,
covered in blood to get his next puppy appointment started. And all I had to do was like, all right, looks good. Here's your check or here's your bill. Just call us, pay it off, get them goats home. And then just today, two of
wow.
our technicians had to run out in the parking lot and wrestle a muddy pig inside so we could trim its tusks. Everybody was covered in mud. It was disgusting and hilarious because the pig was screaming, and then everybody just had to watch it be drug inside. So that was literally just this
So
week.
is that
Like,
so is that like through the front door? Is like there a separate door that it goes through or what?
nope, one door. It was
Oh
funny.
man.
It was really funny. But before I
Okay.
get off track with too many of my crazy stories, uh,
Oh, go ahead.
I
You're fine.
am looking to go back to school to be going to cardiac sonography. It's like a niche field in the medical industry of just taking like sonograms of the heart. It's a 12-month program near me. My school would be paid for. And it's just something I can continue to grow on. Like the more experience you have, the more you're going to get paid, the more you can travel with it and different things like that. So looking into it, praying, asking my family and different things like that. And we'll see where it goes, I guess. Just the next adventure.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
Bye. That's it.